Recently, you might have noticed an incident where Facebook, Instagram, and Threads were all down for a prolonged period of time. We couldn't access it, we couldn't talk to people, we couldn't get information. It was across the board a complete shutdown that had a lot of people wondering if their accounts had been hacked. Now, we've done videos on how to know whether you've been hacked, if it's an outage for you, if it's an outage across the app. I'll link that down below for you. But there are some things that we can learn from this global shutdown of Meta and how we can function as entrepreneurs. The first is the importance of having your newsletter, because at any given time, social media can go away. What would happen if Facebook and Instagram and Threads had just been down for a day, for a week, for a month, forever? How would you have access to your people? For so many of us, our income is based around our work on social media and what we're doing to build our community and the conversations. We are literally beholden to these social platforms. And so if they magically go away, or we get banned, or something happens and somebody reports us and we get shut down, how do we reach our audience if we do not have access to those social platforms? So our newsletter is incredibly important. You hear me talk about this a lot. I drill down on this really deep. Your newsletter is the only place where people actively sign up to hear from you every single week, and you have direct access to. You can never lose their emails. You can never lose access to them. The only way they won't see your emails is if they actively choose to delete before reading. So you want to make sure you have a newsletter, because even if the rest of the world shuts down and you don't have social media, you can still send out your newsletter. That is your direct line to them. And unlike social media, your newsletter is not hit or miss when you put out content. It goes to literally everybody, and they make the choice to open or to delete. Social media says, I'll show it to 200 of your followers. I'll show it to 3 of your followers. I'll show it to 75 followers. They make a choice on how many people are going to see it, and then they're going to end it. It's not all of your subscribers. Not all 100,000 of your people are going to see your content. But your newsletter, whoever is on it, gets it. Period. And then they can make the choice to open or to delete that email. Your newsletter is incredibly important. We've got courses on it. We have tons of videos on it. We've got all sorts of information here on the channel. So your newsletter should be your priority for gathering access to your people to keep it in your possession forever. And no matter what else is going on in the social media internet world, you will still have access to those people. Now, you also want to be mindful of what happens when a social media app shuts down. You should not have all of your eggs in one basket, as they say. If you just post on Facebook, if you just post on Instagram, when those things shut down, now you're done, you're gone, you can't have access to those things. So you should be well-rounded with your social media efforts. You should be spending time on Facebook and on Instagram and on TikTok and on YouTube and on Threads and on the other social platforms. It doesn't mean you have to be on all of them, but it does mean you need to have a good, well-rounded bank of places where you're posting content, building up community, starting those conversations, and creating a space for yourself so that if something happens to one, you still have access to the rest. You still have things that you can be doing. But that also leads me to the point of what happens when one shuts down. Just think about this logically. People didn't have access to Facebook or Instagram or Threads. So what do these bored people now do? Where do they go? How do they spend their time? All those people who were very heavily invested in their TikTok time now get to see the growth of their efforts, because everybody who was only over on Instagram scrolling had nothing to do and has come over to TikTok. It's incredibly important to make sure you're on multiple platforms, because when one shuts down, the bored people come over to the other. We saw so many posts on Instagram when it came back up, and so many posts on TikTok saying, welcome back to TikTok, all of you Instagram people who were not people who wanted to be on TikTok, but you're here now. We see a migration of people who were on places come over to the places that are still accessible because they had nothing else to do with their time. They can't go on the one that is shut down. So making sure you've got content in the different spaces and different places is important. And it also means, because there's an influx of people coming to the other social platform, that you have more eyes and more people are going to be looking at things. So as people are scrolling, we're going to start to see higher numbers. So if you are actively posting a bunch on the days when the other platforms go down, you will get the views because the views are there. And they're looking for new, entertaining, interesting, educational content to show people. you'll see a spike in older content that has performed well, that has proven itself inside of the algorithm system. Those will spike up. But the new content as well is going to get a spike of views because there's so many extra people on the platform. And most people are not going to take the time and effort to create extra content. So when Meta was down this week, I actually created a whole bunch of extra content. I was posting a certain number of times per day. I bumped that way up, and every single time within minutes, I got a significant amount of views on every single multiple post that I put out because it was accessible. It was there. There were people there. There was an audience for it. I took advantage of it, and it worked really well for me. It works really well for people who are able to sit down and do content as well. So if you can real quick put out content, do it. If you have that bank stored up, put it out there. Space it out or do it all in one sitting. It literally didn't matter. I could post back to back just a few minutes apart and I got the views every single time. So when there's an influx of views, you have to make sure you're leaning into it, or the people who are leaning into it are going to be the ones that reap the benefits from it. So you want to make sure that you are heavily paying attention to what's shut down and what you can put on the other platforms, which then you can take that content if you film it outside of the app, and you can use it on the other platforms when they come back up as well. But do keep in mind, if something has been shut down, if you post within a few hours or within a day, oftentimes you will get very low views because they're still trying to right themselves. So I typically recommend that if Instagram shuts down, you wait a full day before you're posting because it can really impact your views. And if you had a good piece of content, you don't want it to get stuck, because that happens. So you want to make sure you're wise about when you're posting this. But by creating extra content for something like TikTok, you then have the ability to put it on YouTube Shorts and on your Instagram Reels and on your other platforms just a little bit later. So you want to make sure you are heavily investing your time into paying attention on what is down and where you can be posting, because everybody's migrating over there, at least temporarily. Now, the last thing I want to leave you with is the importance of being on YouTube. YouTube is incredibly important when other social platforms are down. And I'm not saying YouTube isn't down sometimes. Everybody's got issues. But we know that YouTube is connected to Google. And so when somebody is searching for things, they are going to get both Google results and YouTube results. So everything that you're putting on these other social platforms, unless it's just kind of like whatever conversation, if it is meaningful in any way, get that on YouTube. People are then going to be able to find those things. When they're searching for things, they're going to be able to find it. When you are putting it there, they're going to be able to scroll through it. You're going to be able to see more people go there because people are going where they can be entertained or educated. If they are looking at TikTok and TikTok is down, where they got their entertainment and their education, where else are they going to go? Maybe Instagram Reels, but also very likely to YouTube, where YouTube can be higher monetized. You can make more money on YouTube than any of their social platforms. You have the ability to have a longer reach on YouTube, and you have the ability to then use it in other places. You can embed it on your website. You can send it out in your newsletters. You can do a lot of things with YouTube that are incredibly important for your growth and your monetization. So while you don't have to be on YouTube, I know a lot of people who are on TikTok and Instagram don't really think to be on YouTube. YouTube can be one of the most successful places that you are profitability-wise and reach-wise. And when other social platforms are down, it really helps you to have things there because it's documented differently, it's banked differently, it's ranked differently, and you're going to get a lot more hits on that content as well. So being on the social platforms, very important, but being on YouTube, very, very important for your success as an entrepreneur. And the nice thing about YouTube is that unlike the other social platforms, we're not seeing those weird dips. I talked a minute ago about how on like Instagram or TikTok, if it goes down, you should wait 24 hours before you're posting so they can regulate itself, because anything you post is likely going to be very extremely low and it's not going to get that reach. And then it just kind of dies in the algorithm system. But that's not true of YouTube. YouTube has a very different algorithm because it's search engine and not social. And so where we see TikTok with those high spikes and then it dips off and then maybe it comes back a year later if it's relevant to a specific time or a specific event, maybe. YouTube is forever being found. YouTube is forever pushing out that content. So if somebody's typing in something and looking for those SEO keywords in your title, they're going to find it again and again and again. Whether it is this week, next week, a month from now, a year from now, 7 years from now, you can still get a tremendous amount of hits, way more so than any other social platform. So it operates differently, meaning it's more effective for you, meaning it's more profitable for you, and meaning it is going to last the longevity of your career, not just a short little lifespan of a piece of content that you're putting out there. So you can get more out of it, more bang for your buck, as they say. So we can learn a lot from Meta's shutdown this week. We want to make sure we are actively on all the social platforms, that we are taking advantage of when people are migrating over to a different platform because their platform of choice is down. And we know that we can be expanding our reach with how we do this through our newsletter, through our YouTube channel, through the other social content that we are creating, and then how we are marketing that as well. Drop your questions on this down below. There's a lot more that we can actually learn from this shutdown. If you want to talk about it, we can do a follow-up video as well, but we want to make sure that we're getting you on the right path for when these shutdowns happen. And remember, not every time that you go into a social media app that is not working correctly is a global shutdown. It could be a you issue. It could be a global issue. It could be just a weird little glitch that's going to fix right away. And there are ways to know this information, whether you've been hacked or whether it's some sort of glitch or it's some sort of across the board issue. So I'll link that video down below in the caption. Make sure you check that out and drop your questions for me. We're helping you navigate the world of entrepreneurship every single day to save you time and effort and stress so that this can be your most profitable year ever with the least amount of work ever. We will see you in the upcoming episodes.